Welcome to week 3 of the interesting Apple options play. If you recall, 2 weeks ago, I set up this options portfolio with the goal of making 100% in 4 weeks. I want to update you after 2 weeks, we're doing pretty well. Of course, Apple's been going crazy. The first week, it gained $20.29 or 4%, while our options portfolio did about almost 9%, 9 times as much, went up 35%. Last week was just about the same thing. This week, Apple gained 22.77, up 4.4%, and our portfolio gained a whopping 43%. So over the 2 week period, Apple has gone up 8.4%, and our options portfolio has gone up 78%. That's a full 9 times as much as the stock has gone up. You can see why I like options. But today what I'd like to do is to go over the exact trades that we made last week. And it's important to know that we would have done just as well, maybe even better, if Apple hadn't gone up quite so much. These calendar spreads that we put on do best when the stock stays about flat rather than going up that far. So let's look at what we did this week. We had to do a lot of trading, a huge number of trades. This is the actual trade alert that I sent out last Tuesday to Terry's Tip subscribers. The stock had gone up and we needed to raise the strike price of our short calls to keep up with it. We had a problem. We didn't have enough money to do that. So the first trade here is that we bought back the March 1 515 calls that we were short, and we sold one of our long positions, a March 12 500 call. In other words, eliminating one of our spreads. But since the one that we were selling was at such a lower strike than the ones we were buying back, we gained $1,700. So now we had some money to work with. These symbols here, by the way, this is the second one we did. We increased our short position from the 520 call up to the 535. This BTC, that's buy to close, Apple March 1 520 call, sell to open, March 1 535 call. At a debit of a little over $1,000, we were buying a vertical spread. So of the $1,700 we got for closing out one of our spreads, we used 1,000 of it, a little over 1,000 of it, to roll up one of the other short strikes. And we still had some money left over, so we bought a new calendar spread. We bought to open a March 12 540 call, way up to 540, and we sold a March 1 expired last Friday, a 540 call, and we had to pay $631 for that. So those are the first trades we made on Tuesday. Well, Wednesday, stock kept going up, and I wrote, this is the actual, this is a Terry's Trades portfolio. It's one of 8 portfolios that we run for Terry's Tip subscribers. And this one is sort of a wild card portfolio. Whatever I happen to be interested in at the time is what goes into this portfolio. And by the way, I've been doing this portfolio for 5 months now, and it has made 150% on the original starting price of $5,000. But anyway, on Tuesday, we had to collect some more money, and so we bought to close, a March 1 525 call, and we sold to close one of our long 505 calls. This time we picked up $2,160, which we can use to roll up other calls. So now we bought to close one of our short 530 calls. Again, these are options that expire weeklies that expire last week, and we sold to open a 550 call for a debit of almost $1,200. That's called buying a vertical. And again, we had some money left over, so we used that money to buy another calendar spread, bought to open a March 12 545 call. We sold last weekly's 545 call, paying $840 per spread. So that lasted us until Friday, expiration Friday, when all those weekly short calls would be expiring. So on Friday, this is an actual trade alert that I sent out to our subscribers. Most of our subscribers have these trades put automatically in their account at Thinkorswim through their auto trade program, but some people make the trades on their own. So we send them out to everybody who is interested in this Terry's Trades portfolio. Here we had to roll over, essentially selling calendar spreads. We bought back the 535 weeklies that expired Friday, and we sold next week 535s. We collected $485 for each one of those. We did the same thing for the 540 calls, again selling a calendar. We collected $670 for each one of those, and we did the same thing at the 545 calls, collecting $850. If you recall, these 540s, 545s, and 550s, we just put those things on on Tuesday or Wednesday. And here's an interesting thing. Instead of having a calendar spread here, we've separated this trade into two separate ones. Buy to close the Apple 550 calls. If you recall, Apple was trading just under 550 on Friday, and so this call was out of the money. And Thinkorswim, they have a policy that if you buy back a short call for 5 cents or less, there's no commission on that transaction. So we have to, but if you do it as part of a spread, you don't get the no commission feature. So we bought back as one trade, and as a second trade, we sold open 550 calls for next Wednesday, collecting $700. Well, we still had quite a bit of money left over from all these sales that we made, so we used it to buy two higher strike calls. We went up to 555, buying March calls, selling weeklies that expire in a week. Paid $335 for those. And we bought two at the 560 strike, paying only $315 for those. So we actually have we've added 4 new calendar spreads that we didn't have at the beginning of the week. But we weren't done for the day. Later in the day, we did some more things, some big things. If you recall, over the last 2 weeks, Apple has gone up dramatically, and we started out owning 510 calls, March 510 calls, and March 15 calls. Now the stock's selling up to near 550, and so there's a huge amount of intrinsic value in these calls. So we bought to open a higher strike March call, 535, and we sold to close those earlier March 510 calls that we had that we bought originally. And we collected $1,900 for that. We did the same thing here, and we collected almost $1,500 from rolling up the strike from 515 to 535. So now we got a ton of money, like over $3,000. And we used it just in case Apple doesn't continue to go up. I wanted a little protection on the downside. So I bought two 535 puts calendar spreads. That's well below the purchase price. I use puts rather than calls in this case because it's easier to trade out of the money options if the stock doesn't fall a lot. So we paid only $330 for each of those two spreads, and then we bought a calendar at the 540, 2 more at the 545 price and 2 more at the 550 price. In spite of all these, now we've added 6 new calendar spreads. Of course, we're going to have to close them out a week from now, but for that week, we've got a whole bunch of new spreads. In addition to that, we still have $3,000 left over in this account. If you recall, this account started with a little less than $4,500, and right now it's worth over $8,000, but $3,000 of that $8,000 is in cash. So let's just take a look at the risk profile graph for our current positions and what's going to happen next Friday when the short calls expire. It doesn't even look possible it can be this good. If the stock stays the same, which is right about here at 545, we are slated to gain over $3,000 even if the stock doesn't go up a penny. This is on a portfolio with only $5,000 invested. If the stock should go up $10 from 545 to 555, well, we make a little less, $2,700. But the good thing is if it should fall by $10, we still make $1,000. That's not bad for a $5,000 portfolio. It's about 20% in a week. Now, we need to be ready to adjust. If the stock should fall by $7, say it gets down to around this point, we would use some of that $3,000 to buy a put spread at an even lower strike, maybe 530 or 520, 525. So we would shift this whole curve to the left if it were falling. On the other hand, if it goes up, we probably wait until it goes up at least $10. And if it does that, we would then buy some calendar spreads at higher strike prices to shift the whole curve to the right. So whatever happens, it's going to be an exciting week next week because we could make a ton of money. Now I know I shouldn't brag, but I've got to admit that I've got 50 units, the equivalent of 50 units in my own personal account of this particular portfolio. Over the last 2 weeks, I calculated that I have made as much money as I had made my first year out of graduate school. I would have had to work 20 years at that salary to make what I made in the last 2 weeks on this one option spread. Can you see why I like options? Particularly Apple options at this point in time. I look forward to reporting back to you a week from now and letting you know exactly how this portfolio did.